Welcome to Amir Sessions, where every episode is dedicated to exploring mental health, motivation, and challenging the way that we think. If you're new to the show, get ready to be inspired and challenged to live your best life. And if you're a returning listener, we're glad to have you back for another episode. And make sure to not forget to share with your friends and followers on social media. We rely on organic growth. So every share helps us reach a wider audience. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at amirs.sessions and on YouTube at Amir Sessions Podcast to stay up to date on all things Amir Sessions. And as you can see by the title, I'm starting a new series called What's the Word? This series is going to be dedicated to special guests that I'm going to have on here, and it's going to be more conversational / interviewing kind of style. And if you like it, please let me know. If you have Spotify, make sure you guys answer the poll in the episode description as well. It really helped me out. And today's guest is going to be a special one. I want to introduce him. I met him at a comedy show, and he was actually the opening act. As I was leaving the comedy show, I bumped into him and I was like, yo, I know a sign where I see one. I told him about my podcast and invited him onto an episode, and he graciously accepted the invitation. And I'd like to introduce him real quick. As a stand-up comedian, Sean was named funniest college comedian on Jimmy Kimmel Live. He has toured over 30 states and 5 different countries. Currently has an album out right now called Sean Grant, first of his name. Is debuted at #1 on Amazon's comedy list and streams everywhere comedy is available. He is also an actor, and he's made guest appearances on Maron on IFC and TBS's Meet the Browns. He was also the head writer on King Bachelor Bad's TV and Dead House on Kevin Hart's LOL Network. He also has 2 comedy specials currently out, dropped on Comedy Central and Don't Tell Comedy. And all the links for the stuff that I mentioned above will be in the episode description, and all the links will be there. So make sure you guys check him out. Thank you for joining me, Sean. It really is an honor.
Yeah. Oh, man. Thank you for saying all that, man. I forgot I did some of that stuff, man. I
Of
appreciate
course.
you. Man. I'm
Of
glad we can
course.
make this happen too, man. I appreciate you for having me. And yeah, man, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I was so excited. I put on cologne. I don't
There
know
we
if you can
go.
smell it. I forgot that I wasn't gonna see you. So you gotta believe me, I smell good for you, man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I'm gonna take your word for that one. Thank you for joining us, and let's go ahead and get
Was
started with today's quote of the podcast. Right, and like I was telling you before, every podcast episode, I like to start with a quote and break it down to really get us going, really get us thinking, and helping each and every single person grow that 1%, that personal development. So today's quote is: "The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it," by
mm.
Henry David Thoreau. Sorry if I mispronounce your name, Henry, if you're out there listening. But yeah, Sean, tell me, when you hear that quote, what goes through your mind? What do you make of it?
First of all, I love it. You think, wait, is Henry David Thoreau? He's got to be old. He's got to be like, he can't still be alive. Is that a real person now or a historical figure? I didn't know
I
had names like that. That sounds
yeah,
like a old.
that's a good point. If you're related to Henry David Thoreau,
You're like an
I'm
ancestor.
yeah, if you're following the line of lineage, or if you listen up there in heaven, I apologize for butchering your last name.
He was a smart man, or maybe he still is. I've never met a Henry David Thoreau, but
Yeah,
that's dope. But no, I love that quote, man. To me, it could be completely wrong. I'm not a
yeah,
deep,
100% unfiltered.
but yeah, you know what? I feel like to me, our biggest currency is time. So when it says like life, the amount of life you put into something, I feel like just we worship currency in
Yeah,
America and things like that as far as money, but really to me, currency is the amount of time and things I spent. So like when you really look back at your life, how much time did you put into your family? How much time did you put into the different? That's
100%.
where most of my investment. That's how I look at investment now, and what I'd like to see fruit from. For me, I put a lot of natural time into
100%.
comedy since I was 18 doing it. So I'm beginning to see the fruits, and I love to see that. But also, I've seen to where relationships have gone to the wayside because of
For sure.
putting time here. And I think it has a give and take. You only have so much time. And I realized that, yeah, that if I value something, I have to give it my attention, my time. And some things I realized, you know what? I don't value it as much. So partying and things like that. It's good for some
100%.
people for a certain point in your time life, but I used to get drunk, man. And thank goodness, I don't think I had an alcohol problem necessarily, like some people suffer from,
For
but I
sure.
definitely think I spent less time doing certain activities that I used to, and I'm more invested in other things. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Thorough. At least that's what it made me think of.
Yeah. 100%. I'm definitely going to piggyback off of the investing theme of your breakdown. I personally, if you know me, I don't like to use the word sacrifice. I feel like it has a bad connotation to it. Oh, I have to sacrifice this so that way I can do this. And like you, I like to use the word invest. Like I'd rather invest my time into here. And so that way, once that cup is filled, I can go back and doing the things that I love to do. I'm with you on the same journey in the sense of not drinking and whatnot. So I'm 21, but I've never had a sip of alcohol and I don't plan on to. And I tell people that's not like a jab at anybody like that. If you want to do what you're doing without it causing any type of harm to yourself or anybody, then by all means do it. It's just my personal belief. Like I'd rather invest my time into other things and other people. But yeah, I like to invest my time. Time is essentially life. And what you invest your time into is how much you're willing to sacrifice part of your life for it. So if you want to build up a podcast or a business or your own career or something like that, it's going to take away certain investments out of other things and into your future. Yeah, just being aware of what you're pouring your time and your life and investment into and making sure that it's aligning with your best interest and making sure that at the age of 21, I believe that people should be willing to take high risk, high reward type of investments, especially if you don't have kids, if you're not married, or even if you're not in a relationship, just being willing to invest your life into certain things for the potential of high reward as long as you don't have huge responsibilities. I feel like I'm more willing to make those types of sacrifices or investments just for what I might receive on that end.
Love it, man. Wise guy. And I feel
So
like I feel in the same boat as you, at least when I talk about marijuana. Like I've never
yeah.
smoked marijuana in my life. And I feel like there's an air of judgment on that.
Yeah.
I don't judge anybody that
Yeah.
does. I feel weird. I love that you said that the way you did, because I always have to feel like,
I'm
go
the
for
same
it.
boat. I'm in the
Yeah.
same boat. A lot of my friends, they smoke marijuana, and almost everybody who knows me personally knows that I don't drink or smoke. And
Right.
blessed enough with like my homeboys that I've been friends with for 8, 10 years, even though they do, they're respectful of me. And like when they're in my car, they usually don't do anything like that. No, they're in my house.
Yeah.
They don't touch any of that. But if we're out in public, even if we're out in public, they're like, "Hey, do you mind if I do this?" I'm like, "Dude, like you're a grown ass man. Like do as you please."
Yeah. I had
Um,
one homie that he knew I didn't smoke and I cigarettes or weed or anything. So he asked, I just picked him up from the train station. He got back from a tour of duty in the army and he was very respectful with that. But
yeah.
then we went to a strip club because he was about to start working there as a security guard. Came into the car with cocaine and
Oh
he
wow.
started doing the cocaine without permission.
Oh
And I
wow.
said,
That's insane.
"Hey." Yo, I said, he said, "You can't." He said, "I can't smoke." You didn't say nothing about just
Yeah.
cocaine. I said, "Hey, man,
I don't know about
yeah,
that now.
that's
Yeah.
implied, bro. Implied. Don't just start doing cocaine in people's car."
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that definitely is something you want to ask permission for before you do.
I think so. It's a real drug, man. It's very.
Oh, that's hilarious. Just to flip the vibe 180, I want to get into the interviewing conversational type of podcast. I'm just going to start out very simple and just can you tell us more about you and your background and how you got started in comedy?
For sure. I was my last year of high school. I was doing like plays and stuff like that. And I would write little presentations for the morning announcements in high school. And I happened upon a ticket that was on the ground that said, "You think you're funny? Come to open mic night
Oh, wow.
at the Miami Improv." So it took me like 5 months to write like a 5-minute bit. I've never known how to start in stand up or entertainment at all.
Oh,
All
yeah.
my family is like mechanics or electricians, or the ladies are mostly nurses or in the teaching industry. So
Mhm.
I've nobody that's ever gotten paid in my family to be an entertainer by any stretch, or even performed live in front of people. So
For sure.
this is foreign to me. I had no idea how people start in this business. And I wrote that set for 5 months. And in fact, I remember a girl saw it. She was like, "Are you writing jokes?" And I got so mad. I said, "Shut up." I yelled at this girl. And it took 5 months. I went up. I was like 7, like about to turn 18. And I bombed so bad. But I didn't know I bombed. I just know that I said everything on my paper
Yeah.
and it felt good. I felt like I never wanted to not do that. And I think ever since then, I haven't been off stage for more than 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. That's great.
That's even, I'm sorry, no, pandemic. I would do Zoom shows. So
Sure.
technically I wasn't on stage physically, but even still staying active with this, it's just been a love affair, man. So things have happened throughout that process. I was so much learning. I would meet older comedians and I wouldn't hound them with questions. I would always be careful to not try to be a bother. If they ever offered me stuff, like Mike Epps gave me some incredible lessons as a mentor when he would come to Miami. I would open for him. In fact, he taught me a great lesson about money because I wasn't getting paid. At the first, so we did a day, and then the second day he said, "Hey man, how much are they paying you?" And I was like, "Paying
Pain.
me? Right? What not paying me?" I was like, "Yes." He was like, "Are you crazy, man? You doing a job? This is a." And I was only like a couple years into the business, but I didn't know how to value myself. I didn't know how to, and I think comedians always struggle with that because
Yeah.
they're very, you don't know. Like you start you're telling jokes. Is this good? Somebody asks you to do a gig. You have no idea what to charge. So I'm grateful to have had mentors throughout the process. Mike Epps,
Shout out Mike.
Mike Epps, Malik Sanad. He's a touring comedian, but not as well known. But then poets as well. My friend Willa Real, he passed away from Miami, but he taught me some very valuable lessons early in my stand-up career about just being a professional, being humble yet explosive, he would always say.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of guys walk in, they're green room comics, or they try to, I don't know, they just have a bravado about them, where they're trying to be maybe intimidate other comics or just how funny they are constantly. And I've always tried to just go on stage and be explosive and then just relax and be myself off stage.
Yeah. Love that. Love that.
Hey,
How do you come up with material for your stand-up routine? So is there a process or is it just, oh, you're always thinking of jokes?
I think it's both. So I've tried to. Sometimes I have to sit down and write. Obviously, if like King Bash wants me to write a script for something, or if I'm submitting for a show, like some jokes for a Tonight Show type thing or something like that, then you have to sit down, focus, look at the news, and try to extrapolate, do the process, right? Set up all that type of stuff. And then you hit them with the punchline that should be the thing they see coming is a formulaic approach. But
Yeah.
most of my best material, me personally, is just from storytelling. And it's a unique advantage that I have. I didn't realize I had it early in my career because I started off learning the basic joke structure and trying to write Rodney Dangerfield, who I love to death.
Yeah.
And I thought that's what it was to write a joke. And then I went to a strip club when I was like 19. I was like a year in comedy. And I told some comedians like a funny to like some why it was funny to me. What happened some lady hustled me out of money. I thought she was just dancing with me.
Mhm.
And she was like, "No, I was dancing for you. You owe me $120." I thought it was crazy, man. But when I was telling guys this story, they were like, "Just say that. Don't do it." And I was like, "That's not a joke. That was a story." They were like, "No, no, no. The way
Yeah.
you said it, say," and then that was when most of my success would come from, at least like when Laugh Tracks bought a couple jokes from me, because the details, I didn't realize a lot of stand up, you don't realize it's a talent. You don't realize that the way that you put a story together, some people can't do it. Some comedians can't, but they're amazing joke writers. Formula wise, they can perfect. But then when you tell them to tell a realistic story or that requires some franticness, right? The way I tell my stories, I like to tell the end and the beginning. Hey, I'm gonna get robbed by this guy. One of my jokes on Laugh Tracks is when I first moved to LA, a Mexican guy robbed me, but I had no idea I was getting robbed. I thought we were becoming friends, and then I walk you through the process of.
Yeah.
So you already know what's gonna happen. It's just how.
But just setting that expectation.
Right. So and I love that in a story. If somebody's about to tell me a story, I like to know where it's going to end. So you can be like, my wife, I know, and I love my wife. I think you can hear me. I have no idea where my wife's stories are going to end.
Yeah.
I'm like, is it? She'll just
Uh,
start
uh,
talking.
I'm the same way. So I'm engaged and sometimes
Congrats.
oh,
Congrats.
appreciate that. And sometimes we would just like yesterday we were sitting in the car and so my grandma's getting ready to fly to the Middle East and we're gonna house sit for her. And we
Yeah.
were going to surprise her with I hope she doesn't listen because I know she hops on Spotify sometimes. But we were gonna surprise her with a new garden. We were gonna plant some flowers and stuff like that. And she loves really like herbs and like mint and rosemary and thyme and just stuff like that growing in her backyard. And sometimes we were just driving and running errands to go look at stuff and pick up stuff. And she'll bring up something like that happened 3 days ago. Like out of the blue, we'll be singing to the music or we'll just be having a conversation. And then she'd be like, yeah, so I think cucumbers is a good choice. And I'm like, what? Like, where were you going with that story? And I try to set that expectation too with my podcast. I try to grab a quote that is in relation to the theme of what I believe the podcast is going to follow throughout this podcast. As I'm asking these questions, I'm setting that expectation of to reach some level of success, it's going to have to equate to giving up some part of your life, whether that's going out and partying and stuff like that. That's the same theme that I try to follow with my podcast too.
For sure, man. And I love the organization of, at least when I'm putting things together, when I go up on stage, I like to have my set list close to me. I don't look at, but just as a safety net, like I know that what I'm doing has structure, but then I can play with the structure because then I like to, it took me a while for when like a heckler or something happened in the room.
Yeah.
Who knows? A rafter falls down or something like that. God forbid it, nobody gets hurt or nothing like that. But anything that you can joke about, somebody dropping something or whatever, that shows that the comedian is present. That I don't think singers need that or rappers. You just do your song. There's a fight breaking out, you still do your song, whatever. But comedians have to be present. They have to prove it, right? In order for the audience to believe that this is because a lot of times people think that this act has never happened before. Did you just come up with all that? And to a certain degree, there's elements of it, maybe the formula. I was like, oh, this joke would go better here because that just happened.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. But I like to have the organization there. I know where I'm going with it. And batch, it helps whoever I might be working with or opening for, or if I'm the headliner, it helps the club know when to drop checks because they're like, oh, okay, he's doing that bit. He's about toward the end of the 45 minutes or 55 minutes, whatever time he's doing. So let's start to drop checks or get ready to open up the doors and let people out. There's a lot of organization, even though when you hear me or hear a comedian, you might not think there is. You might think it's just a frantic, crazy guy or something. But
there is an equation in your head. There is a formula.
Yeah, for sure.
I know you mentioned hecklers, so that's one of my next questions. Like, how do you handle hecklers during a show?
Oh man, that's been a lot. Like now, because I'm so present and I don't really get negative hecklers. Like, and usually if a negative heckler can just stand up and say, this sucks, it probably sucked. It's probably because everybody was thinking it and just one guy just felt. So that hasn't happened to me since I was like really young in comedy. And even then, I think people, even though I sucked, I think people knew that I wanted to be good. If I was bombing, I'd be like, what's happening? Oh man, I suck. And I think that honesty kind of keeps people from having to tell you suck because they go, okay, he knows he sucks, so I'm not have to tell him, right?
Yeah.
So there was that, but I had some tremendous hecklers. Oh, when I was at the Apollo in New York, I got booed. But before I got booed, it was all in a matter of 30 seconds. I had a good audition. I was 18. This is before yet. I'm not even a year into comedy yet. I was visiting my uncle in New York. And they had like a regular, it wasn't the televised Showtime at the Apollo. It was just like it was still for money, but it was like a regular Wednesday night competition. Yeah. And I go out there and some guy stands up and he yells, he called me the N-word, but he was black too. He was like, that N-word killed my daddy. That's what he said. And I said, what?
Yeah, that's such an outlandish thing to say.
That was so funny and so crazy to say that I said, and I cursed that I wasn't supposed to curse. I said, oh shit. And I cursed and they said, boo, whatever. It just was clear that I wasn't ready for that moment. And I let that just throw me off and I stopped talking. I put the mic behind my back and I waited for the Sandman and they booed me I'm talking about the entire, so after the 30-second mark where I'm starting to get booed, they booed me for a minute straight. I'm like, should I just leave or what do I do? They're like, no, he's going to come dance. And then the guy dances me off. He was like, I was trying to give you some time to get him back. I was like, man, hell no, dude.
That's such an outlandish statement. Like, I don't think anybody could be like, you got to be like years and years to even just think of a comeback to that. But
dude, I play it back every day of and the only thing I can think of is maybe he deserved it. I don't know what I was saying, but I think just being present.
One of those core memories.
Yeah, I think even just being present or responding, because I do get a heckle every now and again, but not like you suck. It would be like just somebody drunk that maybe enjoying the show too much or wanting to get a little attention. And then I don't fight it. I think that's the way I think some comedians, they break character by going, shut the F up, or trying to have too much control over this show. It's
Mhm.
not necessary, at least the way I think of it. Like some comic might disagree. I think it's our show.
Yeah,
We are here,
100%.
the audience, and we are doing a cooperative thing because really the show changes depending on how you laugh and respond. If the laughs are bigger, I take a longer time in between. If there's applause breaks, it might take longer. If the laugh or just mildly, if the energy is really low, then maybe it speeds me up. But I love Sid Caesar's idea about an audience, which is that he says comedy is music, right? Which
Mhm.
everybody people say that, but he said the audience is the instrument. Sid Caesar's an old school comic from like the 40s or whatever.
Yeah.
But and I said, wow, that's exactly right. So for me, when I heard that would make every show fresh because then even though the act might be the same, you're doing King Bash shows, there's 2 shows a night for week after week. You're not going to change your act that
Mhm.
much. So it's just, okay, this show is fresh to me because this is a new instrument and I'm tuning it up, especially when I go dead first at the show. I have to make sure it's tuned up so that whoever's next can just come and it's an easier ride, you
The
know?
same variables, but you're just placing them in different orders to create the same level of experience, but a new experience for yourself and the audience.
For sure. Yeah, because
Yeah,
it'll never be the same show again. Even if the same
100%.
exact audience came back, they would come back with different experiences in their own personal life,
Yeah.
different. The weather's different, the temperature. So that might change the way people laugh. Sometimes I'll watch a show before the show starts, and you can tell by the way the chatter is, type of audience it'll be. Like if it's mild chatter, yeah, that's good. That means that they're not too excuse me, they're not too talkative, or but if they're like this, waiting for the show to start, that's and I've seen that where it's like
That's a
150
scary
people.
yeah.
Hey, you're like, oh no, they don't even like each other. So that kind of gives you an idea of what pace you might have to take and how you have to hit it.
Yeah, I know we talked about that one person, the "you killed my dad" thing, but is there another particular memorable performance or tour that you've been on that really just sticks out to you?
Man, you know, all of it. I've been doing this for a while, so I feel like
Yeah.
I learn something constantly. Sometimes the shows where you do really well, you don't learn as much, but the ones that stick out to comedians are the horrible shows, the bombs. I was drunk on stage once in England, and it sobers you up real quick. I went to Rum Fest with my cousins, and I was like, "Oh, I'll be fine by the time I get to the show." And my grandma came to see me, my
Oh,
English grandma,
yeah.
and all these people, and I am bombing. And I said, "Oh my gosh." I felt it, and then, like, I just stopped mid-sentence, and
Yeah,
I said I was just like, "This is the worst thing I've ever done." This is
yeah.
the like, of everything, like, this crimes, this is the worst thing I've ever done. And they were like, that kinda loosened them up a little bit. But I think that acknowledgement of, "Oh, man, this is going bad." I also did a show at a strip club once, and I was bombing, and I said right at the 20-minute mark, the guy who was hosting, his name was Razor, and I said and I knew in my head, I've been doing comedy like 5 years at that point, so I was like, "Oh, I know when I'm at 20 minutes."
Yeah.
I hit that 20-minute mark, and right at that point because I was just talking fast, so it doesn't seem like you're bombing. As long as you're just words are coming out, then they're just staring at me like because they can't. They're like,
Yeah.
"What is the joke happening?" Whatever. I just keep talking, and I said immediately at the 20-minute mark, "Hey, Razor, don't be shy with that light, baby." Anyway, and I kept talking, and then you just hear one huge laugh from a comedian in the back. His name is Talent Harris. He was like, "That's the most honest thing I've ever heard from a comedian." You was and anytime he tells people how funny I am, he tells that story about me bombing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, it sounds like I bomb all the time. Yo, this dude funny as hell. Let me tell you, he's bombing.
Yeah.
He just tells
Yes. I was actually just speaking to somebody about that the other day in the sense like knowing when that 20-minute mark is and you've been doing it for a long time. And when it comes to writing material, people don't realize like how much you write and then how little it actually translates to speaking time. You could write like a whole entire, fill up an entire page, and then you're speaking and you're like 5 minutes in, and then you go through all of your material. At least I was when I was like brand new. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I just wrote a 30-minute podcast. Like this is gonna be great. I'm like 5 to 10 minutes in because I speak really fast as well, and I'm like, I just went through all my material. Now I have to like wing the rest of the podcast because I don't want to restart and go through all of this again.
Yeah, man. No, it's true.
Yeah.
I think I get jealous of guys because you see some guys that really comedy is just a flow. See guys with less material, but they can cover more time at a time. Even as I do it more, I'm like, oh my God, that was a 10-minute set, a 15-minute set. Cause you get used to doing so much time at the time just goes much faster when you get smaller sets. But I see guys, the way they can just repeat something over and over
Mhm.
again. On the paper, it's nothing but, for example, there's a guy, Benji Brown, the way or JB Smooth as well. JB Smooth, they both can take a topic and wring out all the juice, almost to where they're repeating a thing with slight variation and it's still escalating the joke somehow. Somehow the joke is still getting better, but it's just a basic, like he has a joke about a Kiki, a lady getting into fights and all he's saying is now she's getting beat up or whatever. She's getting in a fight and she won't stop talking mess. Now she's in the ambulance. She won't stop talking mess. Now we're in
Yeah.
the hospital. She won't stop talking mess. And now she's at the funeral. She's in a casket. She's still talking mess. So it's just the same thing. He's repeating the same thing over and over again. You don't even see that in movies where you're like, this
Mhm.
bit, they're just wringing out the bit. They're getting all the juice out of the bit.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, my writing is more, sometimes I just have so much. But that's just my style. I speak fast and I'll have things under like that. Maybe not everybody will pick up on or hit. Like even when
Mhm.
I do my Comedy Central joke, I say something about being the girl she was 19, but who I had sex with or whatever. I was only 15. She was 19 because she failed a grade and she was born in September or whatever. But the way I say born in September, I know not everybody gets it or whatever, but it hits some people. They be like,
Yeah.
oh, that's what
I think you said that joke in the Greenville
cool.
yeah, it really is. It really is, like I said earlier, just a bunch of different variables, just placing them in and around the equation to equal the same answer. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Now with a digital age and there's things like Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts or even like TikTok, which is a huge platform a lot of people are blowing up on. And it seems like there's an oversaturation of comedians, right? Especially if what you're liking or just want to see funny content every single day. How do you stay relevant in today's comedy landscape? Or how does just a person stay relevant?
I'm learning now still, man. Like, it's funny that you met me with King Batch because when Batch and I met at Florida State University, I was his big homie in comedy because I've been doing it. I'm a couple years older than him, and I've been doing comedy since I was 18. So I was already deep into comedy.
Yeah.
And I met him auditioning for the Black Actors Guild, and I thought he was funny. And I told somebody else, I was like, oh, that guy's funny. And then he hit me up on Facebook and we would go to the clubs together. I would take him to the Comedy Zone. And it's a long process. That was the game I was giving him, man, because that's the game I got. It was right before, it was during the time of Dane Cook getting big on MySpace and that. So the internet was still, nobody knew what it was. We were still learning old game, which was you go to the festivals, an agent sees you, they give you an opportunity to do a sitcom, something like that. So that was the idea. You just keep doing it until somebody discovers you or sees you.
Yeah.
And King Badge moved out to LA after we graduated. We stayed in contact. We would always do stuff together, like little sketches and stuff. And nothing would be a big pop. And then he heard about Vine. In fact, he told me to come out here before Vine. And I crashed on his couch before I got my own place, all this other stuff. And he was like, yeah, man, he's staying 6 seconds. And I literally blew him off. I was like, man, that's dumb. You can't write a story. You can't tell a story in 6 seconds. Okay. Get out of here. I didn't say that, but I was like, I brushed them off. I was like, that because
Yeah,
we did
that
all
ain't
this stuff
happening.
that didn't quite work. It was fun, but it did nothing. We got on World Star when it was like brand new. We got like a couple sketches on there and that was fun. In fact,
When World Star was really good.
when it was good, when it
Yeah.
was fresh.
Yeah.
Brand new, man. In fact, one of the sketches that got on there, South Park stole it as a concept.
Oh, wow.
TV. So if you look at our shake weight parody, it got so many views and all this stuff. And the concept is you're so lazy. If you buy a shake weight, right? You're lazy. That's a lazy workout. But you're probably so lazy that you won't go get a drink. So then it bursts coolant on your face. And it's just a joke, like the cum joke or whatever. And they did that. Like months later, you can look at the YouTube post where
wow.
that was. And then And there's people arguing in the comments like, no, they stole that or whatever. Up Park stole it from them. You can see when they aired that episode versus, and they got in trouble for that. Not ours, but for doing it to
Just
somebody else.
yeah.
That's, I guess it was Matt and Trey were busy and they hired writers who would do that, go from internet content and just take it. But yeah, man, it was cool. It was a cool process. Nothing worked. Vine worked. And he just knows how to stay relevant. One of the things he told me, because that's why I'm doing more sketches now, and I have the right equipment. Before I would try and it didn't look good. He told me, don't put it out if it don't look good. The sound has to be good. The video quality has to be as good as you can get it. And he learned his own editing. And he told me just be consistent. He didn't care if something was funny. I think a lot of comics, we have this self-editor in our head that feels like if it's not the best it can possibly be or funnier than the last thing, then don't even put it out. He was like, no, it's about consistency with the
Yeah.
internet game. And then you never know what blows up. And he's right. I had something hit 1 million views. And it was something that we shot 1.8 on TikTok, 1.2 million on Instagram. And it was something we shot real quick. It was just like a quick boom where I was dressed as a cop and I planted cocaine on the girl because she stood me up for prom or something like that. And it went crazy. It wasn't even the sketch we went to shoot that day. We were actually
Yeah.
trying to do something else, but it's like you never know what people will really want to consume on there. But the internet is the new way, man.
It
Like
really is.
it absolutely is because it gives you control. You can show advertisers who your audience is and get that money directly. Be like, look, my guys, everybody watching my podcast is 18 to 26. You can sell them shoes or have advertisements for whatever an 18 to 26-year-old might buy. And you're in control of all of that. King
Yeah.
Badge, you look at 22 million or it's 23, I forget. On Instagram. He can show that who's watching his stuff. BT can be on TV right now and in a room full of people, nobody's watching it. They can't prove who's engaging and how long they're
The
engaging for.
demographics. Yeah.
And that's very valuable information. Like when you can see people look at my videos for an average of 30 seconds or whatever, that's high
Yeah.
retention. So yeah, man, there's no going back. It's just how can we advance this internet thing more?
I tell people all the time, especially like TikTok is such a powerful tool. I've seen TikTok change so many people's lives. Just they go from 10,000 followers and they're still working a full-time job. But the next thing you know, in the matter of a couple of months with consistency and discipline, they hit 4 million followers, 10 million followers. They're getting paid, they're getting sponsors and stuff like that. And sometimes I'm sitting there and I have that self-editor, or I'm sitting there and I'm like, this podcast idea is stupid, and I throw it out. And then like, oh, you should do a podcast on blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, damn, I wrote material for that like months ago and I just threw it out in the bin. And sometimes when I'm editing videos for TikTok or even like Instagram Reels, like the highly edited ones get so little engagement. But when I'm just putting my face in the camera and my hair's a mess and it's outside and I barely even washed my face, and I'm like, that's the one that gets like a couple thousand views and some comments and some.
Man.
I tell people all the time, people are nosy and they want to see into your life. And you could just show them a little bit of that. They're going to engage with that more than you're blurring your background and you got a shit ton of makeup and you got to make sure your kid is super quiet. And about like people want to take a little peek into your life because people are just inherently nosy.
Dude, I love that you said that because literally King Badge reminded me of something he said. The little bubble around your Instagram head or whatever the story is like, if that ever goes out, you're dead.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah,
damn,
100%.
treat it like that. There's always something in your life. What's cool is that you choose, right? You don't have to tell them your dark moments
Yeah,
of your life.
100%.
Or something. But there's something that they can engage with, and that's the new way of I don't say celebrity, but yeah,
Yeah,
people who-
influencers.
right?
Yeah, they
you
get
know?
ready with me. Like I wouldn't actually sit down and watch somebody get ready. But if I'm scrolling through TikTok and it's a guy who's about my age, who's somewhat successful in his industry, I'm gonna be like, oh, okay, how does he start his day so I can emulate that? And that's just a quick. You're spending 1 hour max of filming. You're just waking up, brushing your teeth, making your bed, and making yourself breakfast. And like that, people will eat that up. Yeah, it really is crazy on just staying relevant and whatnot.
Yeah, it makes me wonder because there's moments in history that I'm like, yeah, what was Eddie Murphy like? What I would have watched him getting ready to do Raw or Delirious because that's a big moment. But that's I don't know if I would watch him every day. It's not like getting ready to go, but
Yeah.
it's cool to wonder. Yeah, and maybe that makes those moments bigger because you imagine what it might be like, but then when you see it, you're like, that's not. And I've experienced that too. People
Yeah.
think that backstage and green room life is a certain way, and it's not. Or there's parties, this, that. Touring with King Bach, even touring for before pandemic for a year, and people are shocked when they come on our tour how boring it is. Like that we just go home every now and again. A club pays him to go. He'll literally go for the exact amount of time they're paying it. Like he doesn't pop bottles like that to
Yeah.
celebrate that way or have group like girls want to sometimes meet up with him, but he's very careful about that type of stuff. As am I. I'm married now, thank God. Before I started actually touring and getting out there, I
Yeah.
was in a committed relationship and I didn't get
There
into
you
any
go.
of the foolishness that some guys find themselves in. But
Yeah.
yeah, we try to it's what some people would call boring, but we find a top call,
Just do normal people thing. I think people forget sometimes influencers or celebrities or internet celebrities are like just normal people too. They do
Yeah.
want to go out and play top golf, maybe go bowling, or just even just go home and just chill with your pets or your significant other, whoever it may be. Just go home and do that. And like I only have 1,500 followers on Instagram, maybe a couple hundred on TikTok. I no way, shape, or form consider myself popping or trending or anything like that. But like hell, sometimes I want to do my podcast and I finish editing and I just want to go home and chill. I just want to relax
Yeah.
and just do stuff. So I can only imagine once I get to that level, because I know you guys are probably putting in 10 times the amount of work to mass produce the way that you guys do.
Dude, and what I love about what you're doing is you're building a footprint. One thing I noticed when I just got on TikTok last year and nothing was really going. And I think I'm at like almost like 40,000 followers
Yeah.
now or something. And I was like, yo, like just I had no expectation for it really. I was just making stuff. And then when people like something, they would go back. Who was it? Craig Colin told me this. I don't know if you know him. He's hugely famous, but he's pretty successful in the podcast space and a great comic, great live comic. But he told me you have to have that so that when people find you, maybe it's this video, this interview that you do. Maybe when you get King Batch on here or something, then people go back and they
Yeah.
look at the other stuff. And now, because they want to eat more of Amir, they're like, oh, more.
Yeah.
And it's all there. So, and it's great
100%.
that you're a steward of those 15,000 or 1,500, whoever's following you and loving your content. You have to be a good steward to that, to the
Mhm.
small, let them be the best people in
No.
the world because they
Yeah,
love you.
100%. I tell people all the time, the algorithm is really tricky because they'll promote all your like 6, 7 videos and then they'll tank and you'll get 1 to 2 likes, maybe 3 comments, 100 views. Like I continuously get shadow banned on Instagram because like I'll post like something about Palestine or
Oh,
something
wow.
that Israel is doing to Palestine. What's
Yeah.
going on? And I'm from Palestine, so I'm going to bring awareness from that. I'm going to bring awareness to the Muslim communities and stuff like that's going on. And Instagram will shadow ban me when I do
Oh,
stuff like that. So I'll go from 600 views on my Instagram story for a couple of days and then I'll tank. There was for a good 3 months, I was getting no more than 50 views on my Instagram story.
man.
Like I was averaging between 20 to 50 Instagram views on my story. And
Yeah.
then for a good 1 to 2 weeks, they'll bring it back up to a couple hundreds and then they'll tank again. What they'll do is they're sneaky like that too, because once you start tanking in views, they'll put ads on your Instagram or your TikTok. They're like, hey, promote this post and blah, blah, blah. That way
Uh-huh.
you can start feeding into that. And I never feed into that because I tell people the more you do it, the more they're going to shadow ban you. And because they want you to continue to spend money and it's all for they'll just flood you with likes and views and there's no actual reoccurring engagement. It's just a one-time
Right.
thing full of bots who go in there and like it.
It's a whole game, man.
It
Yeah,
really
let's
is.
figure it out.
Yeah,
Dang.
Tony Stavocci. I don't know if you've seen him on TikTok. He's a well-known, I wouldn't say comedian, but he makes jokes what King Batch did on Vine and whatnot. Hilarious guy. Sometimes I'll just binge watch his TikTok page because he's hilarious. But he talks about that all the time. He'll literally he's look at this 1.2, 1.4, 3.4, 18 million views, 10,000, 30,000, 1.2 and they'll pop up an ad on his For You page, promote this page and get higher engagement. And I'm like, wow, I was like, they really do that. I started noticing, I'm like, they do that with me too. Yeah.
Dang. That's
So
crazy, man. But and I love that you still look, man, when you have integrity, when you say, I believe in this thing, everybody doesn't necessarily agree with, okay, whatever, but this is what I believe in. And whatever the cause, man, I think your audience will catch up to that and they'll be like, I love that guy. Cause really people that do anything for views,
yeah,
I think they get their just desserts eventually because I see guys who their content is they go to nothing wrong with, but they go like Walmart or something, and smack people or throw things at them or whatever. But
yeah,
then who do you think is going to come to your live show now? Right. And
yeah.
then what if you fed them? Right. You have to train your audience in a way. Saw my friend Sam Comro get big on AGT, America's Got Talent, and he was
Mhm.
clean, obviously, because it's on ABC, but he's not in live in person, a clean comic. So he would anybody that was on the show who was opening for him, he would say, look, be as dirty, filthy, do that. That way they're not shocked when they see me and they can already have left. I want those people to leave because a lot of middle America, whatever you call it, Bible Belt people might come to a show expecting something and that's not who he is. So you don't want to change the act to make or be somebody else to fit that. You want your audience to find you, and it's going to be people that might agree on certain topics so that you agree on, and that's who you'll see that they're more engaged, they're more invested in you. I think if you have integrity.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. There's a guy that I know, I'm not gonna say his name, but we went to high school together and he was just a regular guy. And then he blew up on TikTok and Instagram. And he was known for stealing other people's content, like word for word,
Oh,
sound
I
for
think
sound. It was just like crazy because some people will just do that. And I understand it in a big space as Instagram and just social media. There's going to be content that's going to be similar, and it's okay to, like me, I would be completely fine if somebody's inspired by my idea and they were to make like a parody or like a remix of what I'm doing. But if every single post that I'm doing is just being stolen and then they're getting the applause for that and then they're getting all the recognition for that, that's gonna rub me the wrong way. You're gonna grow, well, I don't want to say enemies, but you're gonna get people who are going to dislike you for that in the long run. And it's like, at the end of the day, what is it worth? Is it really worth all of that?
dude, it's crazy. I've seen that before the internet, not before the internet, but
Yeah.
before like internet content. Like you have comedians run up on to beat people up over a stolen joke, or you'd see a guy. In fact, it was crazy. I figured out that it's always scary when you find out the guy you know better or your friend in the joke thief. 'Cause I was with my buddy, who's actually he was a young comic. So I did the same thing. I won't say his name, and he's got original material now. But the guy on stage who came in from Oakland, we were in Atlanta. He's doing a joke. When I tell you, it's the exact same joke because it's not just what they're talking about. They were both talking about when the kids come up to you with their football helmet, they're
Mhm.
trying to get money from you while you're in the car or whatever, and they're telling
Yeah.
you a speech. It was like this kid just kept saying the same speech. Now, everybody's had that happen where somebody approaches, but the speech was the exact, all the details were the
Mhm.
same. Hi, my name is Trayvon. I'm trying to go to Miami to get, and he says it, and he goes, "Oh, what position you play?" Hi, my name is Trayvon. He just keeps repeating the same
Yeah.
speech because he doesn't know how to go on topic. It was just funny the stuff he was saying, but it was the same. So clearly, because I'm looking at my friend like, hey,
Didn't
that
I
guy,
say that joke? Yeah.
if you say that joke, that's exactly you say the name, the kid's
Yeah.
name, everything is the same. And he goes, the way he did that, I was like, oh, you took it from him. That's why
Yeah.
you're not upset. And you're not gonna go, hey man, did you see me
Like,
do that somewhere? Yeah.
yeah.
So it's been not to judge him. I'm sure that he probably is very embarrassed about it. But it's a scary thing. If you get too used to doing that, then you don't trust. I like to believe, oh, I say God, but you could say the universe, whatever your creative is. If you're not comfortable finding and digging for that, then it's a scary position to be in because eventually
100%.
that's going to catch up to you and you have no idea how to be creative. You keep stealing people's material and then you get a TV show and they're like, okay, we need 5 scripts by tomorrow.
And you're like,
Uh,
what do I do now?
I don't know how to find that formula for myself. I have to go stealing. And there's only so much that you can steal before everybody goes, especially in this day and age where we can compile things and piece it together. Back in the day, you could just have
Yeah.
a whole act and go around the country and it never really catch up with you because there's no trail. But now that we have a digital trail, look, this guy put this joke out this time, and here you are telling the exact same joke or however they do it. They'll find you.
Yeah, 100%.
Man.
We're getting around that 1 hour mark, so I just want to ask a couple of questions, and I kind of want to do like really rapid fire because I know me
Oh,
and you, we bounce off each other, and we'll go like 10 minutes on one question.
for sure, for sure.
So currently, do you have any upcoming projects or specials or tours or anything like that you can speak on and let people know that are around the corner?
For sure. King Batch and I will be out again starting February. We're going to be doing a theater tour. Also, my improv team, BMC Improv, is in Sketchfest in San Francisco. It's the biggest improv and sketch festival in the world. So, anybody in San Francisco and close by, come on, check us out January 20th, opening up Sketchfest. Man, yeah, man, just I'm going to keep staying consistent with the internet content and stuff.
Great. Yeah. If you could send me the links for all that information so that way I can go ahead and throw that onto the podcast, that would be great. So what are any challenges that you face as a comedian or even just a comedian that's a person of color, and how do you overcome them?
I would say what we taught, how we started, man, time, making sure that I'm investing time, not just in when I'm booked, but in going out, being in the scene, networking. I'm just learning that's a big challenge for me, learning how to sit in a room where I'm not completely comfortable or having to spark up conversations or just be there and allow something to happen organically because I always feel like, ugh, if I'm not performing or about to perform, I just run
Yeah.
out the club. And that's a big challenge for me personally, just having to sit in a place and engage. And I've gotten some great things from that, man, just because people realize, oh, that guy's cool. And you just chill and they get a vibe for your real personality.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's
That.
big for me.
Love that. How do you stay motivated to continue to challenge yourself like creatively?
You know what?
Creatively, sorry.
I use what used to be jealousy. I just watch guys and I wouldn't quantify it properly in the past. I would think I was getting jealous and really I'm getting inspired. I love to see the successes of King Bad and really motivates me. He's got a new movie coming out.
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
like, boom, I see his dedication in this process. But the same with my friend Carlos Miller of the 85 South show. I watch him and I say it happened for him just through just trusting the process and getting better and undeniable. And I realized that when it happens for me, like when I have these things happen, the Don't Tell special and the Comedy Central, and people enjoy it, and you see the comments, and you're like, okay, let me not sit in it. What's next? What's
Mm,
next? So that's their attitude. When I watch my friends, they're always never harping on one achievement. They're always going, what's okay, that was great, but we can't sit in that too long because that's already out. It's done. Boom. What's next? So yeah,
yeah.
man, just watching my friends.
Yeah, 100%. Love that. So, two more questions. Can you give advice to someone who wants to pursue your career or your field? Because, like my brother Danny, that you met earlier before the show,
Yeah.
one of his goals is to become a comedic actor. So, if you were to speak to him or to anybody else who's young, who's fresh, and don't really know anything, they don't have anybody else like yourself who was in your field or in your family, what type of advice would you give to them?
Enjoy the process. I would tell Danny, man, I don't know what like improv or acting classes are in the area, but definitely invest in those just to get a feel for what it's like to memorize a script and to perform it, to learn the formulaic stuff as far as going to an audition and how to kill it, right? Then if necessary, if I don't know if he wants to do it online and just showcase himself that way to doing his own original characters, because I don't think you have to move to New York or LA like you did before in order to or just make his own movie. Like
Yeah.
just do it. Just start doing it. And other people, even though it may not seem like it, because not a lot of stuff happens, it seems to be happening in other parts of the country. I think that if you start doing something dope, man, and you have people around you, you'll just see that they'll come with you and they'll make a movie and everybody will see what a great comedic talent you are. Or if maybe if you can know somebody that writes and here's the script, can you help me punch it up? Boom, a community will form. And you
Yeah.
guys will have a team like Adam Sandler had, and all those guys that King Badger's building, and that you're just like, yeah, man, I feel like God puts those people around you, interested in them as friends for a reason. And not everybody, no, some of you are getting drunk friends and some of you are drug doing friends, but
Yeah.
other friends, you'll gravitate toward more creative people and you guys can help each other work together.
Yeah. Okay. And actually, two more questions now. I'm going to ask this one and one more. So, Sean, for you, what is the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal, man, just to keep making a living off of this. Really, personally, now my wife and I wanted to start a family, have kids, and I feel like
Wow.
we finally are in a position to where that's not a struggle anymore. I wouldn't have to, losing one gig doesn't destroy me financially or something like that. Even King Batch had to cancel a lot of dates last year, and it didn't, it was cool. It
Yeah.
was the only way that I made income from writing some commercial spots and from doing, so it's that I don't worry too much about that anymore. We have great savings and good investment. For me personally, it's just to keep just enjoying this process, man. I would love to be on a TV show, and I'm doing the work for that. Me and BMC Improv create content constantly to showcase the fact that we can do sketch comedy. Would love to be on SNL, but even that's not an ultimate goal to me.
Yeah.
There really is no place that you stop. Nobody goes, even Kevin Hart. Like, he hasn't reached his ultimate goal as but it always, the finish line will always continue to move back. So I suppose the ultimate goal is to find peace through the process of doing this all, and just enjoy every moment of it, man. This moment is the best day of my life, man, because everything that's already
Yeah.
happened, that's great. It's boom, it's right here. I can relive it right now if I want to, but I'm here with you presently, and
And yeah, and I appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah,
This is a
man,
this is a great podcast.
great.
Yeah. So to
Thank you.
piggyback off of what you just said, do you see yourself doing comedy in shows and being on tour for the next 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years?
Dude, I want to live to be. Moses was 120 when he
Mhm.
died. He lessened, so I was like, I'll probably go for 120 or something
There you
like that. Oh, whatever. I don't know if I'm not
Yeah.
going for Methuselah or somebody in the Bible was like a 900 years. But anyway, yeah, something like that, man. No, but for the rest of my life, however long. So that's why I'm just focused on staying healthy, maybe a good diet, drinking a lot of water. And for the rest of my life, I would like to, in some way, be creative. I see Mel Brooks still was the guy that wrote all those shows in the set. Norman Lear still has new projects. And he said the most profound thing I ever heard somebody say. He was 86 doing an NPR interview. He said, I'm a completely different guy than I was 3 years ago. And he was like, when you were 83, he was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm a completely different guy. That's what keeps him alive, what keeps them thrive. Betty White, before she passed, you're constantly allowing
Evolving.
yourself to evolve. Yes. Even
Mhm.
though you don't just sit in age and decide to die while you're still alive.
Yeah.
I just want to keep working and enjoying this process, man, enjoying the experience of life.
100%. And the last question, Sean, are you happy?
Yes. Yes. And happiness comes and goes sometimes. It's not in every moment am I happy, but I think for me, the baseline is peace. And I can't necessarily be happy if something tragic happens, if somebody dies or things like that happen constantly throughout life. But I can have peace with the fact that this relationship was what it was, and I was able to experience. For example, a friend of mine just passed, Boogie B, rest in peace,
Oh, wow.
comedian,
Rest in peace.
great comedian. And I can't be happy about something like as awful as that. But I have peace with the fact that I got to know him. I got to watch his process, and he got to do what he wanted to do in his life. And how much people celebrated him at the end kind of shows what an impact he had on so many people. That to me is the baseline, peace. And then hopefully I can deal with the emotions that come throughout that process.
100%. 100%. Thank you, Sean, for being on this podcast. For the listeners out there, that's all for today's episode of Mere Sessions. I hope you found our discussion with Sean inspiring as well as insightful. Don't forget to share the show with your friends and followers on social media, and follow both of us on Instagram at amirs.sessions, and as well as I am Sean Grant, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
And if you believe that this episode was worth it, I would love for you guys to rate it 5 stars. And make sure that you stay up to date on Instagram and YouTube for more content. Let's get our shit together, and I'll catch you on the next one. Sean, do you have any last words for the listeners out there?
Oh, man, I love y'all. I appreciate you, Amir. Thank you for having me, baby.
No problem. And you guys take care. See you on the next one.
Yeah.